Hi, my name is Doug Schmitt of Schmitt Antiques. I've been an antique dealer and furniture refinisher and restorer for over 30 years. My son and I are in business together. He's been helping me since he was a little boy, and that was over 26 years ago. One of our specialties is antique dental cabinets. We've been carrying those for a long time. They're one of the few things that have really held their value throughout the years. When you think about it, 100 years ago, almost every house had tables and chairs and beds and things like that, but probably for every 30 or 40,000 people, maybe there was one or two dentists. And even back then, unless you came from an affluent family or you had a well-established practice, chances are you couldn't have afforded one back then. Most of the better ones sold for like $90 up to about $170. That was a lot of money back then when you consider the fact that most people were working for about $10 a week. We're going to take you through the restoration processes of a dental cabinet. This is a Harvard Model 4X. This is one of the more desirable models. It has all the bells and whistles. It has a rotating drawer bank here, swing out trays, with all kinds of little inserts. It has a camber roll down here, with more swing out trays. Up here you have a timber roll with shelves in there. This has raised panels. It's quarter sawn oak, all original hardware. Has a finished raised panel back. It's one of the more desirable models. As you can see, I'm 6 feet tall. This is well over body height. So this is what they look like when we get them. Most of the time they're not in this good a shape, but this is one that's on the borderline. We decided we would restore this one. Okay, what we've done is we brought it downstairs from our showroom, and we've taken everything apart so that we can make it ready to be stripped. You might find it hard to believe, but there's over 68 pieces to this particular cabinet. Each piece has to be stripped, sanded, stained, and all the finishes applied to it. So take a look. There's quite a bit here. You wouldn't believe it to be that much to one cabinet, but there is. Well, here we got Tony. He's starting to strip this, wetting it down so that we can scrub it. We've got a flow system which pumps about 5 gallons of stripper at a time. It recycles itself, and gradually it'll evaporate or get used up, and then we'll have to add more. No real easy way to do this. We don't dip it or anything like that. Anytime you use a hot tank, you're loosening all the joints, because just about everything up until about 1950 was done with high glue. And the way to deactivate or loosen up high glue is to apply heat to it. That's how we get a lot of the joints loose. A lot of times we'll apply hot water to it if we need to knock something apart.
Okay, now that we've done the basic stripping and scrubbing to remove the old varnish, we let the piece drip and soak for a couple minutes in the larger pan, and then we move it over to the rinse area where we rinse it off with the high pressure washer. Now normally you would think that spraying the wood with the water would be bad, because in most cases water exposure to wood raises the grain. However, with the stripper that we use, creates sort of a barrier over the wood so that when you spray it with the water, it does not raise the grain. The end result is that the piece is very clean and in very clean condition, so that we can later begin the sanding process. It's important to rinse every part of the piece of furniture, otherwise you'll get a sticky residue that's hard to sand off later on.
Well, you can see there's quite a few pieces here that we just stripped. This is all to one cabinet. It's part of the 68 pieces I mentioned before. Everything will dry out here, and then tomorrow we'll start sanding everything, doing any repair work that's necessary. But you can see there's quite a bit here. Actually, it's stripped pretty nice. Got some stains in the wood and that, but that's what we do. We'll sand and do some artwork and everything else and color everything up. Okay, after we stripped it, we realized there was a lot of bad stains on the top, so we got to belt sand them to get the stains out. So, go to it, Tone.
Okay, well, we've been sanding the drawers and sanding the base to the dental cabinet today, and so we can sand it and get the color even and get all the nicks and scratches removed, and we fill any holes. I'll show you a view of the side. You can see the outer framework has been sanded, and where the raised panels are, that's what it looked like after it was stripped. You can see there's a definite color difference once it is sanded. It's very important when refinishing to sand the wood, especially with oak, to get a nice even color, so that when you stain it, it brings out the beauty in the wood. If we were to not sand it, such as the way the raised panels are, and then we were to stain it, you'd have a very dark, dull looking piece of wood. So it's very important to sand the whole wood, which is very time consuming. Okay, well, I spent the last 2 days doing all the repair work and sanding to the base, so it's now ready to be stained. Like we've mentioned before, we do all the parts separately, especially the fancy things that go at the top. So we'll do all the finish work on the base, and then we'll glue the parts on later. So once you get stain on the wood, the glue won't adhere, or if you get finish on it, it won't adhere. So we've plugged the holes with paper towels so that the finish and stain doesn't get on the inside. But we've been quite lucky with this one. After belt sanding the top, all the stains came out, so it should look pretty good. So let's see what it looks like with some stain. We put the stain on with the brush, and then we wipe it off a few moments later with paper towels, going with the grain. We actually stain our oak pieces through a two-step process, so this was, the first color. So you can see from here the top looks pretty good so far, so I'll just continue staining the rest of the piece, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, the last we saw, we had stained the piece. Now it sat overnight, and Doug's colored all the marks and scratches and done different artistry to cover up any stains that they have. Right now he's applying the sanding sealer coat, the first sanding sealer coat to the cabinet. Already we laid it on its back and he sprayed underneath, and then we set it down on its wheels. rubbing in between each coat. That's how you get a good finish. If you just spray 1 or 2 coats and you don't sand between coats, you end up with a sandpaper finish. On the top surfaces, we put multiple coats and we sand between each coat until we fill the grain so that we get a finish that is smooth as glass. You can do the same technique using grain fillers. However, on oak, over the years we've tried grain fillers and we don't really like the way that it comes out. Grain filler on antique oak seems to change the color of the grain, especially nice quarter-sawn oak. So with oak pieces, we put multiple coats and sand in between each coat to fill the grain. It takes quite a bit of time because you have to allow time in between each coat to dry before you can rub out and spray the next coat. Right here we have several of the drawers and swing out trays that have been sanded and repaired and stained, and they're in the process of having the sanding sealer coat sprayed and applied. Here we are applying the sanding sealer to one of the trays. Here's the drawer front on the large drawer. You can see how beautiful the quarter-sawn oak is when it's been properly sanded and stained and sprayed.
This is the rod that holds all the swing outs. We took all these out, took all the pins out, and replaced the pins, because usually they end up getting bent, as you can see, over the years. So, take all those out, we'll polish everything off. I have to clean all the crud off with a coarse buffing wheel to get rid of all the crud and everything off the rod so that everything will spin freely. Alright, I'm going to put a little polishing compound on here, Triple E, and that'll clean this up. We don't want to polish this too hard because this is nickel plating. Nickel plating back then was real strong. It's solid brass underneath. Usually if these are really in bad shape and the plating is peeling off and everything, then we'll take it down to the brass. But this plating is not too bad, so we just want to clean it up. And it'll still retain that nice look. Some of the residue will stay down in the grooves, which will give it a nice early look. That's not quite finished, but you can see it cleans it up pretty well. It'll make it look a lot better.
Acho que não vou deixar